Good morning, everyone. This is the IPython Jupyter Dev meeting for December 4th. And since we had a long one on Tuesday, we don't have as full of an agenda today, but let's get going. I think I had put one of the first items was to try to finish up the decision on 6950, the kernel selector.
Yeah, I think it had kind of narrowed down that it was basically take out the UI, the GUI part of picking the default.
The default.
But leaving the JavaScript for picking the default there. So
fine with that.
Someone can put it in custom JS or whatever.
And they can make a call to write it to disk, right?
Yeah, you just if you open your JavaScript console and do like update config set value equals, you do that one time and it'll change the value. So
I was thinking, why don't we just add
from Python now?
Why don't we just add to the docs, like not anywhere in the code, but just in the docs a snippet note, if you put $% JavaScript this and run this once, it'll write the value for you, so that basically something that we can
not
tell
people. Not $JavaScript because there's no $% JavaScript on the dashboard, but.
And we can't access that.
It would be a lot more code because the relevant config is not on the notebook page.
Ah, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then
it wouldn't be a lot, but I would just use the JavaScript console.
Sure. But why don't we just then? Okay, never mind doing it with $% JavaScript without the console. Just putting that snippet on a little box on the docs that says, if you want to write this permanently to disk, copy and paste this into your JavaScript console.
Yeah.
And that way we can punt on UX implementation and discussions, but there's an answer to people who want to know how to do this. Otherwise, we're going to be answering this question 20 times on the mailing list.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah. And I think the only other point I want to make is that I think in the long term, the notebook app as a whole just needs the preferences page or dialogue for all these different default things.
Yeah, now that we have a mechanism.
Yeah.
Figured.
Yeah. Brian's a bit of a robot right now, but
yeah, Brian, you sound really funny.
But yeah, now that there's a mechanism for viewing and saving config, we can actually think about a preferences page. But
yeah, of course.
I think that we can get to next.
Yep.
Next release.
We'll document how to set config, but for default. Am I the only one to whom typing on Hackpad has enough lag to be actually difficult?
No, I think it's I don't know if it's just the size of the document or if it's the fact that we've got 30 YouTube videos embedded on the page.
Ah, okay.
But yeah, this is the reason why we split the
other one,
the document in half. We're now getting to the end of the second half.
Yeah, it's really lagging for me too.
Yeah, it's laggy enough that it's actually hard to type because the visual feedback throws you off whack.
Yep. Just don't look.
How to set config to for default kernel, but no UI for it right now. We'll add UI when we build prefs page. And now you don't look, but then you have to go back and fix the typos.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right.
Get the gist.
6450, and by the way, there's a rebase needed on 6950.
Yeah.
6454. I was just pinging it, especially in case Jason Grout is listening, really, since this was one of his. I don't know, Jason. If you are listening, let us know on Gitter.
What is the content of that one?
That's the one that you reopened this morning, Brian. And I just basically figured, well, since it seems to have been a little bit forgotten, and Matthias wanted to close it, but you kind of mentioned that it was probably still a bit active. then I figured I would just basically ping people here so that.
I thought we had reached the conclusion, if that's what we want to call it, that we would not do this now, and after 3.0, when we split things out, this kind of widgets, this application framework would be developed in a separate repository under the Jupyter organization. That's my reading of what we'd said about that.
Okay, so in that case, should this be basically tagged for merging after 3.0?
No, I don't think it should be. I think it.
Or just
this should be like the seed of a completely separate repository. I don't think it should be merged in to this repository.
Can you guys hear me right now?
Yeah, we can. Jason,
Okay.
by the way, hold on. Jason, we're talking about 6454.
I was under the opposite impression that we agreed that because the widgets would eventually become their own repository, that it's fine to do more experimental stuff in them.
I honestly don't remember. Do we have it written down anywhere if we want to?
No,
I don't think so.
we don't, actually.
Okay.
And it's all, and I think,
I mean, there's plenty of comments on the issue.
Yeah, I hadn't actually read the discussion. This was.
Yeah, I think most of that discussion happened here, not there.
With the experimental being released with 3.0, there's a lot of usage cases that people won't be able to explore.
Brian, you're breaking up terribly.
All right. Bye-bye. Sorry.
I think what Brian was trying to say is that if we don't allow this, that the kind of experimentation will be much harder, and that by deciding that we would mark this as very unstable and as experimental, that we were going to flag this as unstable APIs. They're basically as a tech preview, and that they will be split. Is that Brian? Yes. Are you trying to say something?
Not quite. No. I'll try to get her in a few seconds.
Jason has just said, I thought we were going to split widgets off after 3.0 and gave up trying to push this into the core until then.
Yeah, and so an important thing is that this is a PR adding something that they were already using and pushing it into upstream into core. There's nothing that needed to change in core for this to be doable.
Okay.
It's just a question of whether it lives, which project it lives in.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think there's a problem with creating a repo now before the splitting, and then having it stand alone for a bit and having people work on it from there.
Yeah, that wouldn't be hard to do with the widget stuff, at least. I mean,
would that make life easier, John? Do you think?
Wouldn't that start to make things kind of fall out of sync?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, that or we would have to have another Git submodule. Like, we would have to start doing the split now, which...
I would rather let us focus on getting 3.0 out.
And then do the split.
Yeah.
And, I mean, how complicated is this PR?
It's not.
It's not at all.
All the discussion is. It's not about the technical problems of the. It's not about the technical issues of that. It's about what widgets are and what widgets in IPython are, and it's.
I mean,
this is what prompted the.
Yeah.
Decision that widgets don't belong in IPython.
Yeah, I'm remembering now. I'm remembering now. This was the one for links, and Brian, can we hear you or not?
Yeah.
I just posted to Gitter.
Well, that didn't make it through, but we can hear you a lot better. Oh yes, I'm
There's a
-1
minus
on
one.
that. Yeah.
And there's another one that the -1 applies to something you said minutes ago.
Okay, well, can you?
So Brian's -1 on something.
Can you
no, my most recent one said, I think the entire widget framework should be visibly marked as experimental for 3.0.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that's what we were.
And that
That's
because
what I
of
was
that,
trying to do. Yeah.
because of that, we should do things like link, and it's all experimental. Like don't keep some of the experimental stuff out.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole thing is experimental. Like
Yeah.
when people import widgets, they should see a big message saying, "This is experimental."
And they are gonna get moved out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
So I don't see a reason to be conservative on this particular feature.
yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
I agree with that. I think we should. I mean, Jason, would it make? I mean, you said Jason is listening. So Jason, you said that you were you had kind of given up on trying to push this one, but would it actually be useful to have it merged now? You can reply on Gitter. We're watching.
There's a 10 or so.
There's a bit of a lag. So.
So we
I'm going to disappear off the call for a few minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm.
It's really hard to have a
yeah,
face-to-face conversation.
What did you say, Min?
I'm okay either way. Treating the directory as a kind of a third-party project that happens to live in our repo for now. Or third-party, whatever the right word for first party. Jason's fine either way. Whatever the word for first party but external is.
Yeah.
So
Jason says he's okay either way. Jason, but I guess another question is, do you think that let's imagine that this had already been split into another repo? Do you think that once it was in its own standalone widget repo with kind of full scope of doing fairly complex and ambitious JavaScript work, would you push to have it included there at that point? Let's imagine this is like March 2015 and this is living in another repo. At that point, would you try to have it merged? Poor Jason is like
that's the way to
trying
have a conversation.
yeah, yeah. It's like we're talking. So this is about the lag. What, to the moon? Maybe it's like talking to someone on the moon. What's the time? The round trip time to the moon?
It's like a couple seconds, I think.
A couple seconds. Okay, so this is more than the moon. Probably less than Mars. I don't know. I think Mars is a few minutes.
Yeah, depending on where they are basically in their orbit. Because it's 8.5 minutes from the sun.
From the sun to Mars. Jason, let's imagine that this had been split into its own separate repo. Okay. In that case, if Jason says that he would have it, I mean, he finds it useful and valuable enough that it will be pushed in the future, and at that point he would have it pushed. I don't see why to delay it, and I'm going to call this one. I'm going to invoke BDFL privilege so we can move forward. And I'm gonna call it, and let's go ahead and merge it. Module. I'm not gonna push the merge button in case there's any last-minute technical stuff that needs to be done, but I'm gonna approve the merge for this one.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And then Kyle, you had a note about single cell server and remote current. What are?
Yeah. So I don't have an explicit thing. So I was talking to Andrew more about what he wants to do for embedding just content that would run on like a single kernel. And it might not be a single cell, but let's say you open up a page, and then whoever's on that page gets access to a kernel. And I was wondering what the best avenue to go for that would be.
Yeah, that's kind of what the single cell example is meant to exemplify. I now remember a conversation a while ago. I was supposed to update that so it works again.
So he forked single cell,
okay.
and then I added stuff onto it so it would work with temp and B.
Okay.
And then so that's working along just fine. But I wanted to make sure that that was the right path to go.
So what did you do with temp and B? It spins up another HTTP server. It's like another single cell server for every
single one. And
okay. Because the other thing you could do is move that whole thing. You can move the boundary for the ephemeral bit. And have single web server where you're spawning kernels.
Yeah.
Just kernels.
Because that's what we really need, is just the kernels.
And because then you don't need to duplicate all the web server stuff. Or I don't know, maybe duplicating the web server stuff is good. I guess that's one of those things that sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
Jason says, are you guys reading Gitter?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's huge to be able to embed the single cell into other web pages. So yes. Yeah. Man, Jason, you should just get on the call.
Yeah, for some reason he can't often. It's tricky for him at work. But yeah, it would be great if he could be physically on the call. Jason, you should tell your company to get on the internet. They'll be amazed at how well that stuff works.
I think they're strapped for cash. So no, that's asking him much. Yeah, I mean the single cell thing that I have right now is more a demo than a reusable library. And I can update if we want to think about making something actually reusable. Then we can spend some time kind of defining what that should look like.
Okay.
Right now this is an example of a web app that uses a subset of your JavaScript and Python, so that you can show kind of a demonstration of how pluggable and modular our stuff is. Or in the case of when I first wrote it, a realization of how not pluggable and modular our stuff was. But that prompted a bunch of cleaning up of that stuff.
Hey, Jason.
Hey.
Can we hear you?
Nope.
Jason, okay.
Well, at the very least, I'll talk about the declarative format that Andrew's going for right now, which of course is plugging into their overall like Atlas platform stuff. So yeah, the code snippet I've just produced there, you're just saying like, how is it executing? I mean, this could all change. And then the language that it's running in, right? And so that's partially their own formatting, but also for whatever front-end stuff they have, how does it connect back to creating some kernel? So that's like the motivation there, that you could just embed this, and you basically have, yeah, you might have multiple cells on the page, but they're all reaching the same kernel. And it's just like realization of the notebook, but separate, that you could just run those code snippets within an overall log format.
Yeah, right, because we have this hierarchy of of elements in our JavaScript, right? You can have a kernel that can run code with nothing else. So it's just a JavaScript API for running code. And then we've got a cell object that is kind of an implementation of an area where you can type, and then handlers for taking output and putting it on the page. And then we've got notebook is a level above that. That's a document that, it takes a bunch of cells and writes an actual document format. And actually, and there's one more piece. There's the output area. So cell is an input area and an output area, or cell is code mirror stuff and an output area. And you can actually use, you could use just kernel and output area.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Just kernel and appending outputs somewhere.
Yeah, which means you could just embed widgets instead of having the inputs for those widgets, like the code that created them.
Right, you could just have widgets, and you can just have an output area. So you can, so it should be possible with the JavaScript that we have now to do something like this, where you either just have the kernel, or you just have it's maybe a bit unclear at what level you'd want. Like, do you want just totally custom output handlers at the JavaScript level? Do you want to reuse output area, or do you want to reuse the entirety of cell? And I think all of those are reasonable. I think depending on context, it's reasonable to do any or all of those.
Okay. Cool. So maybe what I'll do is I'll just submit. We have 2 JSONs.
We got 2 JSONs and they're making buzzing noises.
So maybe I'll just make PRs against your single cell. The only thing I added onto the single cell was to add the base path.
Sure.
Yeah.
Can you mute Jason, maybe, Min? I think
Yeah.
that's Jason.
Yeah, it is. And the answer is apparently no. I cannot mute Jason.
Oh. Awesome.
I tried too. I couldn't get it to work.
I couldn't either.
It seems to have kept it stopped now.
Oh, maybe he's muted. It just doesn't tell me he's muted.
I asked him to mute himself.
Okay.
Oh, maybe that was him trying to talk. That
Probably.
wasn't interference. That was him trying to actually say something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's exactly what Jonathan said. He sounded like a bag of bees. Bummer, Jason. We would really like to be able to talk to you. We really would.
Yeah. So we can spin off just conversations about the single cell and building applications with fewer components.
Yeah.
Yeah. We want to make sure that the metadata that refers to these cells, that we think carefully about how that maps to our metadata keys that are used for kernel selection, and that somehow sort of that we don't end up effectively creating 2 different ways of saying.
Oh no, we definitely want a standard here, and I think this is just what Andrew mocked up.
Sure.
Just like literally an hour ago.
Okay.
Yeah, and using kind of the kernel spec structure, I think makes sense.
Yeah, and that way it'll be, you could even imagine that an active notebook server or an active kernel can automatically be accessed in this way with once it's up and running, you can view it from a separate web page or something in this way. So we don't want to have two separate ways of saying the same thing. Which kernel am I using? Which language am I using, etc. We're already specifying all that in the kernel.
Yeah.
Yep.
And if we're completely crazy people, that this is the same kind of thing that could be embedded on MBViewer, so we still have a permalink, but that people can still run that code.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And be short.
Yeah. So this was craziness that I'll probably toss out. But I at least wanted to talk to you guys about it.
Cool.
So our Twitter cards are kind of lame.
They are. They're terrible.
Right? So I was like, okay, so let's try doing screenshots with Phantom. I think it was either John or Min that had originally suggested this to me, and so I went ahead and tried it.
Uh-huh.
And it's reasonable to try to figure out where an interesting piece on a page is, like to grab the last chart or graph,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever's rendered, and then make that be the image part of the Twitter card. And yeah, this kind of works, but I think it might actually be easier for me to just like do something with MB convert and Sphinx, because apparently, I guess pigments can export an image, and if
Wait, pigments?
yeah, so pigments apparently can export an image. Found that out today. And then we can also just extract the image itself and like whatever the base 64 image is and make that part of the Twitter card. Like use the last image. And then our links for Twitter are just literally whatever their last image is or some other heuristic for what's interesting on the page. And if we have this working, then we'd be able to actually shuffle around what's on the front page dynamically.
Yeah.
If we wanted to have those cards still that show like, oh, here's this cool notebook, here's this cool notebook, we still need some representation. So either we have to have a standard, or we tell everybody in their notebooks put in metadata for it, or we have to reason about it. Yeah. And the way that EmbiShot works right now is it takes, it opens up the page to EmbiViewer. I'll actually just, maybe I'll screen share real quick.
Okay.
Okay, so this is an EmbiViewer URL up here. / URL blah blah. It's for Jake's, and so then it passes back to you a URL for where that image is going to be produced at.
Uh-huh.
But on a CDN, so that you could just like embed that as part of the page that gets rendered, because it takes a while to render the page, like, to boot up Phantom and everything. So once you create it, you get this. Ooh. Do I need to static there? But yeah, so like it just creates this PNG.
I wonder if we, an alternative would be, or once we have this in place, a nice extension would be to have, to make it very easy for people effectively to declare a thumbnail for a notebook.
Yeah.
To just include the thumbnail in the notebook?
Maybe, I mean, either include it in the notebook or include a URL to it and make it very, very easy, provide a sort of basically share this notebook, something for sharing that basically asks you what part of the page to render. We make it very, very easy to do that. But I would start with Kyle's initial solution. I mean, this is a great MVP. It's already better. It's already much better than the ones that we have right now that all look the same. They all say exactly the same thing. check out this IPython notebook. So this is already would give the page some variety, but obviously deciding which one is the interesting plot to highlight or which one is the pretty part to show, that's a decision that we'll never be able to make automatically.
There are libraries that do that. That take part of the picture and look at the nice area.
Yeah, I actually looked at one of those for cropping. I did not play with it yet, though.
Yeah, you can do it automatically.
Yes, no.
Well, you don't know what the user wants.
Yeah, I know you can, Matthias, but what I'm saying is finding automatic. I'm still skeptical that any of those libraries is going to know which is the scientifically relevant plot in a collection of 20 figures, for example. It's going to use some heuristics on image data, and that's about it. It may be better than nothing, but at some point allowing users to control that would be good. But anyway, this is a great start.
What about a simple mechanism allows the user to put in like an anchor tag or something with an ID, like thumbnail position, and then it will scroll so that's at the top of the page.
Yeah, that's a good idea. If one can. Yeah, defining, because I was thinking how to make it as easy as possible, even better
the way other services are doing that is you have a file which is named thumbnail.jpg and they are using that, so it's just next to the file. Like Mike Bostock blocks or something like that for this example use this convention.
Yeah, but that forces people to actually take the screenshot themselves. What I like about Thomas's idea is that all you have to say is, this part right here is the part that I want. You make a one-time tag in your notebook, and we just scroll down to find the first one of those. And then if as you edit your code, that figure changes and evolves, as long as it's still the part of the notebook that you want to showcase, you're done. You don't have to do anything else, and we'll always get the most recent copy.
So what's the idea?
Oh, allowing Kyle wrote a little bit of code to basically take screenshots of notebooks so that the Twitter cards would be better, and so that we could have actually screenshots on NBViewer. And we were thinking, what would be the easiest way of allowing the user to say, this is the part of the notebook that I would like the screenshot to come from, rather than trying to automatically guess by looking at the content, which is tricky.
So we need a tagging API.
How about cell tags, like what Jonathan did?
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Using the cell tags, I really like that idea.
perfect.
And so it would just be a matter of saying, of defining a standard, just saying if you tag a cell with thumbnail or whatever we want to call it, then that is the part. As it's exactly what Thomas said. I'm just repeating what Thomas said. I really like that idea.
Well, I was actually, when I said tag, I was actually thinking an HTML tag.
An anchor, an HTML anchor.
Yeah.
What about not bothering with the full screenshot, but just allowing them to tag a particular image, like an output?
So rather than screenshotting a segment of the notebook, only take a specific figure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. You can play with it.
I think all of these are reasonable. Like that.
Yeah, any flavor of those.
Yeah.
But I'd be very happy to see us start even with the automatic one. Jason, is that you trying to talk?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, you could just even tag a cell as this is my showcase sale, and the output of that.
Yeah, but what do you? Should you show just the output? Should you include the input?
It may depend. It may depend on context.
Yeah, I mean it will. It will.
Well, yeah, I think the idea of tagging one cell and simply scrolling, whether it's with an HTML anchor tag or with simply a tag on a cell that we put in, and scrolling that to the top, and basically screenshotting what fits below, and then if people get used to it, the part that they want to showcase, they may simply put a title, a bold title, a section title, and make it not too wordy, so that the image fits on the page at that point. Though maybe alternatively, just an image may be better. I really don't know. It's one of those things, probably worth playing with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I guess we could push out what's already made, which I already think is kind of terrible in some ways, but at least it works.
Yeah.
And then if we adopt it, so if people notice it, and then we adopt a standard later, I think that's okay. So if people, yeah, okay.
No, MVP it out. It's already nice. It'll already give some variety to those things, and then we can iterate on how to allow people more control. I think it's fine if it's a little crude right now. Totally fine.
How are you doing the screenshots?
It's with Phantom.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah. No, I think it's a great. I love it. I think it's an awesome starting point.
Yeah.
Okay,
wonderful.
Cool.
Kyle, thanks so much. Great job.
I'll work on the PR to NBViewer then.
Yep.
Wonderful.
We'll work on it as an external service, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like a REST API?
Yep.
Oh, cool. I mean, other people might want to use that even.
Yeah. So Min and I talked about it a little bit and talked about not making it too generic, at least since we know we can reason about the notebooks themselves. So at least for us, it'll be just about notebooks.
Oh yes, no, not a general snapshotting service.
No, because there's lots of those.
Exactly. No, that's not. I wasn't saying that.
Okay, cool. Yep.
Jason, it seems like we can finally hear you. Do you want us to roll back a little bit the conversation to single cell? Is there anything that you'd like to pitch in? If we can hear you. I don't know if we'll be able to hear you.
Somebody muted me probably because I don't have headphones, so my mic is.
I can hear you.
We can hear you now. No, it's just that you were creating a very bizarre interference.
Right. Sorry. Yeah, that was trying to get on my computer. So I missed some of that single cell conversation because I was walking around the building trying to get this to work on the cell phone. So, but I can offer a few insights from our experience with the single cell server, and that is one of the huge places where people use it is to have multiple cells on a single page that talk to different kernels. So some groups of cells talking to the same kernel, another group of cells talking to a separate but same kernel, a separate kernel from the first group of cells, but the same kernel among themselves, etc. We see a lot of this in academic books and things like that. One of the things we noticed when we have this all working with the IPython infrastructure. We use all of the kernels and all sorts of stuff. One of the things we noticed is that the IPython widgets use Bootstrap, and Bootstrap takes over pages, so it's terrible to embed. And there's a lot of other concerns when you're trying to embed that you don't want to take over the pages JavaScript. But if you can, we included jQuery UI and stuff like that and tried to encapsulate our stuff enough that it didn't mess up the rest of the page. Bootstrap, they can't do that very well. It's not designed to do that. But if you had a more minimal set of widgets, a lot of people use these for widgets. Another big thing with our Sage cell server is the idea of linking, being able to easily get a link to share computation from the cell server. Another big place that we've seen it being used is embedding, not just computations, but embedding these interacts throughout, not just even in a single area, but
hey, Min, I'm already taking those same notes further down. Let's take notes in the same place.
I'll just not take notes.
Oh no, it's fine if you help me, especially because typing is so miserable. But let's just do it in one place.
Good synchronization algorithm. Looking at these a lot lately.
Have you tried rebuilding IPython CSS without the normalized layers that take over everything with Bootstrap?
Can you say it one more time?
Bootstrap has a normalized CSS that basically take over everything for its style. Have you tried to rebuild IPython CSS without a normalized layer?
What we've done, we have our own in Sage interacts and widgets and things like that, and so we've tried to avoid using the IPython widgets. And no, I haven't done anything to try to correct for IPython using Bootstrap and their widget framework and stuff. We've used jQuery UI and loaded our own theme and tried to encapsulate things so that it didn't mess with things elsewhere on the page. But I haven't tried. We saw if IPython widgets worked. You can see even now in the Sage shell server if they work or not. And after seeing it really messes up the other parts of a page that you're trying to embed into, we didn't pursue it any further. Now, web components hopefully is coming out sometime soon, and that would offer a possibility to be able to encapsulate Bootstrap and everything else, CSS and everything for your component, and keep it separate from the rest of the page. But web components has been in the mix for a long time, and who knows when things will get here. The shadow DOM, I don't know. There's parts of web components that are coming in, like the shadow DOM and other things, but into browsers, current browsers. But this idea of embedding into another page really is a different use case you guys have been doing, and you've given us enough hooks with the Sage cell server to be able to do it, though it's hard to use the graphical stuff that you guys have done because it's not made to embed into another page.
Yeah, we may face this more and more ourselves even as we start to combine different components on different pages.
Yeah, and we're already seeing. Just yesterday, it seems like I'm the one who's creating interference now. That's weird.
I think it's when we talk, we get noise from Jason.
Yeah, I think it's an echo.
Ah. Okay. So I was looking yesterday at KBase, which is a DOE project for biology that is using IPython extensively, but they also have their own surrounding web framework for other things that have nothing to do with IPython and that they need as well. And this was hitting them pretty hard already. So this is going to grow. This is going to grow as a problem that even sort of that we have to consider in other contexts. I imagine. I haven't looked exactly what William has done on SageMath Cloud, Jason. You probably know better, but I imagine he's had similar issues as well because he's putting all of IPython into SageMath Cloud, right?
Right. He runs IPython in an iframe, if I remember right.
Fully iframe. Okay.
Yeah. So then it's not an issue.
Okay.
Sorry, separate but an aside. At the recent PyData meetup or workshop, the conference here in New York, I met Olga Botvinnik, who was one of the John Hunter people. Okay, so anyway, I think she's using widgets quite a bit actually, and to jump into the community. But your remark about biology and KBase, I mean, there's some talented people that are working on IPython widgets in biology.
Yeah, no, she's wonderful. I was part of the process of selecting her for that fellowship, and she's working with Titus Brown, and we met her at PyCon in Montreal. She's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
So, but it's a good reminder because I actually should talk to her because of KBase now. I'm actually formally working on KBase now since I joined LBL. I'm actually formally working on the KBase project. So that's a good reminder. Thank you.
Do you know how much of this problem could be solved with prefix in CSS, or is it really like low-level bootstrap stuff?
You can solve probably some of the problems with prefixing CSS. Prefixing each class or prefixing things inside of like a top-level DOM that you're putting everything inside of. I mean, there's
both.
Yeah. Probably prefixing each class solves a lot of the problem. I mean, Bootstrap is applying everything based on the class names. So if your class names don't conflict with the embedded, with the parent page's class name, then there's not much of an issue. I mean, that probably will solve a lot of the problem. There's probably CSS specificity problems then, though, as well. You know,
we definitely need
element,
to start
and you have two specific ways of styling this element. Which one takes precedence? We've had problems with that with the theming in IPython too.
I definitely think we need to start to prefix all of our CSS classes.
Yeah. Yeah, we had on the agenda, or I guess we've had it for a bit over a year now.
Yeah.
Kind of take a pass at all of our CSS to make it a bit more embed friendly. But
well, I'm gonna guess that if we end up doing the phosphor restructuring, that's going to require so much CSS work that would be a good time to then kind of take these lessons and do it right at that point, because, and my understanding from what Chris explained, so much of phosphor is actually CSS driven more than JavaScript driven, that it'll be the right time to do a lot of this.
Yeah, switching to phosphor means we need to write a lot more CSS.
Yeah. So we might as well do it in this way. All right. Anything else? We had a short list today, so it's okay if we finish a little earlier.
I was going to say I have some encapsulating of the CSS in a top-level theme. So
we may end up.
I can paint CSS.
Changing not only.
Sorry.
Brian. Brian must not be hearing you because he was cutting in.
Dropped off. He's not on the call anymore.
And then he dropped off. Go ahead, Jason, again.
Okay. So I have code to change the theme and change some of the CSS based on changing a class at the body level. You know, it's kind of a hack right now, but you know, I could push it upstream, or probably better is to just wait until after 3.0 and then restructure everything.
Yeah.
Phosphor.
Yeah. Let's do that. I think we're trying to really zoom into finishing up finishing up the last things for the release.
Yep. Yeah, I think we're just filling in a few holes, trying not to do any
Not opening new ones.
refactoring or anything.
Is
Yeah.
Windows existence in the docket still for 3.0 then?
Yeah, because that's just that's an extra API. That's
Okay.
That's
Good.
Can you guys hear me right now?
Yeah, kind of.
I have a question about Jupyter Hub and main notebook interaction as it relates to people using the Unix model of sharing. So
Yeah.
if I change the permissions on a notebook I have to allow maybe Fernando to view it, and I send him a URL of that notebook, it won't work.
Right.
Unless because it'll be set, it'll be bgranger/mynotebook/notebook. On Fernando's system, that path doesn't exist, and I guess the first question is, do we want to tackle that issue for 3.0? Otherwise, it seems like sharing notebooks is actually essentially impossible, or really difficult. And if we do want to tackle it, what do we have ideas on how we'll tackle that?
I think if you want to set something like that up, you should probably do it in such a way that all your users actually have the same root URL. Right, so
Yeah, I mean, Brian,
so if everybody's root is home,
yeah,
/home instead of /home/them,
yeah,
then the only thing that would be different is the username, and we can take care of that redirecting in Jupyter Hub.
yeah, Brian, that's how I would do it. And even if we don't do a redirect, at least what would work is manually. If you sort of give me just the part of that path after your username, as long as our common server was configured for the server start directory to be /home and not /home/you/home/me, then I would be able to go to the top and paste the tail end of that URL, and then it would work right away, because it would be my user authentication context, your path, and if that path is in a directory where I have read and write permissions, I can go and execute there. We're not going to be sharing the kernel itself. We're going to be sharing the document space.
Yes.
But that would work. So it's not great, but even without the redirect, it can be done today. It's just that the admin has to say the root directory for every single user server is going to be /home, not /home/their user. That's really the only thing. Now, obviously, we could make the user experience a little bit better by allowing the servers to have a distinction between the root directory that starts and the default page. Basically, have the default page be one level down, but that's still where the server can still go up, but we're normally by default. So that's more sort of cosmetics and usability, but technically, with that change, it can already be done. It's just not very pretty, but it can be done.
And I guess my question is, I mean, there's two things. One, can it even be done at all? And I think the answer is yes.
Yeah.
But we still should test that before we release IPython.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that everything does work. And the second question is, to make it pretty, do we need to make changes to IPython or to Jupyter Hub?
Yep.
Probably both. But more, well, maybe both. I don't know.
I mean, why not just a button which is permalink and with a specific handle, and when you go there, it detects who you are and redirects you to the right URL. It's almost always how things work. If you want to share a Google Drive document, you never copy and paste the URL of the Google document. You go to share and you ask for a public link. That would be pretty easy to do with an extension, a JavaScript extension that just removes some things and a custom handler on Jupyter Hub.
Yeah, so we've talked about adding the notion of sharing to Jupyter Hub.
Sure, but
which
I mean,
we're specifically not doing yet, but
Yeah.
As a stopgap, right now you could just have a service, a third service on Jupyter Hub with a special URL handler that basically do redirect depending on who you are, and you just like ask for a specific link that will target this URL. But you don't have to basically really go into messing with all this stuff.
I just think this usage case is going to be common enough that we need to have some official story on it with 3.0.
yeah, sure.
Even if it's ugly.
Yeah, no, I'll mock up a kind of a test environment and see what it looks like and make tweaks.
And I'm going to be installing Jupyter Hub on our cluster over December myself, so I can help test and play with that stuff.
Okay.
And
Related to Jupyter Hub, so there's a PR that's open that'll probably merge as soon as this meeting is over. That kicks the Pseudo. So we've got this spawning with Pseudo thing. You can do it. You can run the server as root, and then everything works smoothly. But you've got a web server running as root, and then we've got a mechanism that spawns that uses Pseudo to do things, and it's horrible. It's a nightmare. I pulled the Pseudo functionality out of Jupyter Hub and made, just like the Docker stuff, I made a Pseudo spawner package that's a custom spawner that allows you to run it as without any root privileges. And it's a great deal simpler than what we had before.
Oh, great.
Which is probably what I would recommend using for vanilla Unix environments. You might also try, I mean, there's also what Jess is doing with Docker and matching home directories and things. So users are actually running in Docker containers, but they have access to their home directory and all that stuff. So there are lots of options.
Who's doing that, Jess? Jess Hammer?
Yeah.
He's already doing that here on campus?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Oh, I need to see that. All right. Anything else?
Nope.
Well, we can actually show it now. Because maybe I can log into it. You want to see Jupyter Hub with all that.
Brian, were you trying to say something? Brian?
No, I have to step off for a second.
Okay, well, we're wrapping up.
Right.
All right. Bye, everyone. Bye, Internet.
Bye.
Hey, Jason, thank you.
Enjoy your Americano, Brian.
Enjoy the Americano, Brian.